that's important. That ties again to Sun Tzu's one of Sun Tzu's principle. Sun Tzu wrote the book, The Art of Warfare. And he says that when it comes to warfare, there's a need to know yourself and know the person that you are battling with. In this case, though, we're using the word battle and warfare, we're talking about relationship. It's not necessarily a warfare, but it's also a warfare. Call it a love warfare or a love battle, a battle for each other's heart, a battle for connection. For that to take place, for you to win the connection that you're looking for, you must know yourself and you must know the person you're trying to connect with. He says, if you only know yourself, you are not guaranteed to connect all the time. If you only know the other person, you are not guaranteed to connect all the time. But if you know yourself and you know the person, you are guaranteed for there to be a connection all the time. Because then you are able to then direct your effort, your advances in a way that suits the person you're trying to connect with, right? So that's pretty much what Sun Tzu says, So it's knowing yourself, right? Knowing the person you want to connect with, knowing yourself, knowing your spouse. If you don't know yourself and know your spouse, you are going to have relationship issues. You are not going to understand one another. You are always going to be clashing, right? But when you know yourself and you know your spouse and you respect the person that you know, right? Then it's easy for you to connect. It's easy for you to relate. It's easy for you to go above the small things, right? And you can then have a life-giving, healthy relationship in your home, right? You can have a happy home, a prosperous home. You can have a paradise in your marriage, right? When you know yourself and you know your spouse and you respect yourself that you respect your spouse that I mean, respect doesn't mean that you like everything that you know about yourself or like everything that you know about your spouse, but you have to respect what you know. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem, right? You have to respect what you know, right? And relate right with what you know. Otherwise, if you want a happy home, right? Relationship is not about changing the other person, right? And nobody even gave you the license to change the other person. The only person that you have the license to change is yourself, right? You can influence your spouse. You can influence the other person to change, but you are not the creator of that person, right? Marriage is not about changing your spouse, right? Marriage is about influencing your spouse, no doubt, but not changing your spouse, right? That change is a personal decision, not a decision meant for someone else. It's a personal decision. You can change yourself, but you have no right to change someone else. You can influence someone else, no doubt. You can share what you know with that person. But for you to have a good relationship with whosoever, you must respect who that person is, irrespective of who that person is, right? It's up to that person to change. You have to then give the person maybe the reason to change by being an example of what you want, right? But not force yourself on that person, right? Especially if it's your spouse. If you want to have a healthy or want to have a healthy relationship, a life-giving relationship, you must respect your person that you know. Even you yourself, even though you know yourself, you are not perfect. You have weaknesses, you have strengths, right? You have ways to go. You have not arrived home yet, but you must respect what you have. You must respect who you are, right? Because if you don't respect who you are, then you have what we call a low sense of self, a low self-esteem. And if you have a low self-esteem, you cannot relate right. Whether relating with yourself or relating with someone else, you must respect who you are, even if you are not where you need to be or want to be. You must respect that this is where I am today. I'm a work in progress on the way to become all that I want to be. But this is my reality today. But that's not my final bus stop. I'm still moving. I'm still growing. I'm getting better. But if I don't respect where I am today, I cannot go that journey to become where I want to be. Where I am today is a foundation for my tomorrow. If I don't recognize where I am today, then my tomorrow has no foundation to stand on. right? Same thing for my spouse that I'm relating with. I might not necessarily like what I know, but I must respect it. This is where my spouse is today. And my spouse is not going to get better unless I respect who my spouse is today and relate with who my spouse is today aright. Right? Respect that person and relate aright with that person. Right? Yes, maybe trusting the person will get better, but that is not my job. My job is to respect who I find today. And love has a way of influencing. If you love that person where that person is today, that person on his or her own will seek growth, will seek to get better. Love is like wine. It intoxicates. It wants to get more from where it is coming from. When a person is loved, that person seeks growth. That person seeks improvement, right? When a person is despised, there's no energy to grow, to be better, right? So love on its own influences for growth, for betterment, right? So if you want your spouse to be better, it's not to despise who your spouse is, it's to love your spouse and respect your spouse for who your spouse is today, whatsoever that is. You must respect the person because that's what love does, right? Love does not despise. Love loves. For Christians, the Bible would say, Romans 5:8, that while we're yet in sin, God did not despise us. We're yet in sin, dirty. He came down and accepted us in our sin, right? His love for us in our sin is the reason why we sought to come out. He did not say, come out, 25, I love you. He loved us in our sin. We talk about the prodigal son. The father ran to the prodigal son. They say, hey, come, go have your bath before I hug you. Go and clean up, go and change clothes, and I'll hug you. That's not love. While the son was yet away in his rag and he was smelling dirty, the father ran to the prodigal son and hugged him in his dirty state, in his rag, in his smelly state, right? That's what love does, right? So if you're going to love somebody, especially your spouse, your children, you have to know who they are and love them where they are, not where you want them to be. Love them where they are. Respect their person. Your love will do the wonder on its own, right? So that's important. Uh, so the pursuit of intimate connection is not without its assets, obviously, right? By opening ourselves to joy of loving and being loved, we risk being hurt, right? By being vulnerable, you risk being loved. By doing what you believe is right and is right doesn't guarantee that the person you are loving will immediately respond, right? The person you're loving doesn't guarantee the person you're only responsible for yourself, right? But the truth is that if you do it long enough, if you believe in what you do, that person will respond right. But there's no telling how long it will take for that person to, right? It's just like a rock, right? The first eating on that rock doesn't crack the rock, right? The second doesn't necessarily crack the rock. But at some point in time, there's already damage. There's a crack already occurring on the inside of the rock. You don't see it while you are still eating on the outside, but it's already getting weakened by each hammering of that rock. So if you're doing the right thing for your spouse or someone else, anybody it is that's related with you, that you might not get the immediate response back of love, right? But if you believe in this principle, you stay at it. You respond, not to react. You stay at doing the right thing. That's what principled people do, right? They respond, they don't react. You keep hammering that rock. That rock is breaking, even though it's not visible to you. There's a crack already taking place on the inside, right? So it might hurt you when you are still doing that. When someone you love is not responding to your love, it's not necessarily easy, right? But the way to get it to do it right, there's no other way to do it right. There's no other way to get the result. There's no other way to be happy but to love. Love is the way, right? But yeah. But also love is not stupid. I guess that's where some people miss it and because some people do things that are not love, they think it's love, right? Love is, and we'll talk about that. I think I have that in the next slide here. Don't let me not jump. But love is love. Giving is not love. Giving is not necessarily love. Love gives. But because you give doesn't mean that you love. Someone says, because I sent her to school and she doesn't want to marry me, I'm hurt. When you were sending her to school, was it love that sent her to school? Did you love her or you wanted her to be your slave? Did you love yourself while you were loving her? Did you know yourself? Did you know the person you're sending to school? If the person does not marry you or is not your spouse, will you still send the person to school? There's always love never loses. If you truly love that person, then you let that person go. Love does not imprison. Love really. However, there's no way I can say in any way that when you love, you, as much as you open yourself to receive, to be loved back, you could also be hurt through that same channel. But love is worth it, right? And when you grow in love, then you would know that, like I said earlier on, that love is the way. It might not appear so, but it is the way. There's a crack taking place, right? But you have to stay. You have to stay the journey, stay the time it takes for the rock, for that crack on the inside to be shown on the outside, right? It's a process, and you have to stay to get the benefit of the process, you know? All right, let me move on this. So, like I was trying to say, love takes the risk of being vulnerable, right? But love is not stupid. Love takes the risk of being vulnerable, but love is not stupid, right? Being vulnerable, like we said again, is a balance. It's not too vulnerable or less vulnerable. It's just vulnerable. Being vulnerable is not you doing it without your senses. Like I emphasized last week, you must have healthy and functional boundaries in your life. You must be a principled person even in your vulnerability. There must be things you don't do. There must be a limit to the things that you do because you're a human being. You have strengths, you have weaknesses. You must have boundaries that protect your weakness, right? As much as you excel in your strength, you must have boundaries that protect your weakness. Loving is not stupid. Loving it still has the senses correctly. You do things rightly. You're not a prisoner of the love. You're not a prisoner to the emotions of love. You don't lose your head. As much as your heart loves, you carry your head along and make decisions that make sense. Love is not stupid. Yes, love is kind, right? But love is not it's not pity. Love is not being a prisoner to your emotions, right? And we'll talk more about that. So as much as love takes risk, love is not stupid, right? Love has boundary conditions. Love has things it would not go beyond. As much as God loves the whole world, God's love still has boundaries, right? It says, I present you a life and death. You choose. Although I love you, I'm not going to choose for you. You choose, right? Love does not imprison, right? Love still respects the decision of the subject of subject of its love, right? Of the object of the love, right? So giving is not necessarily love, though love is given. Love gives, but just because you are giving doesn't mean you love the person you are giving to. Just because you send someone to school doesn't mean you love the person, right? And if you truly love the person, You will respect the person's decision. The person decides not to marry you or return back to you what you have given. Because love gives without expecting anything in return. Love gives, but does not imprison the person or the object of the gift or giving, right? If you're expecting something back, that is not love. It's something else, but not love. Because when love gives, love gives. It's not a bargain to receive something back, right? Yes, giving, love gives, but not all giving is love, right? When love gives, love gives. It's not giving because of, love gives. Because love wants to make the object of the love to be better, wants to increase the value of the person that he loves. So love does not give to your spouse because of, that's not love. That's something else. That's witchcraft, right? That's witchcraft. If you are giving because of, that's witchcraft, because you are giving to control the person. That's not love, right? So we need to differentiate love from witchcraft, right? So when I'm giving to my spouse, I'm not giving to my spouse because of, I'm giving to my spouse to make my spouse better. Whether my spouse returns my favor is up to my spouse. I'm not giving so that my spouse returns the favor. If I do that, that's witchcraft, not love. When love gives, is to increase the value of the object of the love, not because of what love wants to get back. That's not love. If he's doing it for the reason of getting back, that is witchcraft, not love. So giving is not necessarily love, even though love gives, right? That's important.